The special operation by the SSU, SBU, and GOR continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. Last night, and still burning now, the oil refinery in Russia's Kostovo is on fire. There are powerful explosions and fires there. This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow. Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with secret superweapons, missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg, and this is only the beginning. Oh! Night in Russia is like being in a prison zone. Here are my actions.
Here comes the second UAV. A lot of them are flying toward the city. Hit and scored a direct hit. Oh, the second one. Take that.
Really, what is that? Is that a drone flying up there on... That's it. That's already happening, isn't it? Already right now.
And the third one caught fire.
We have top analyst Alexander Demchenko with us. Sasha, hello.
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, top news. The Germans said that the missiles will arrive any day now and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg. A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up and submarines have been attacked. I read their most interesting news, the one I liked the most. A symbolic collapse. The Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, might be decommissioned and scrapped. What do you say?
I will say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We are at the very start of this path. Look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got their headline right. The cover, the editorial. Putin ruined everything. Putin messed himself up and made a mess for himself. Do you understand? In the Kremlin, there in the bio-toilet. What am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be a massive attack on Russia, especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get these missiles. There will be strikes. But most importantly, and probably even more so, Trump, who decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin, just now the news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen assets, and Trump will start with Europe. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely Trump has given or has already given Ukraine attention, has already given Ukraine the green light to strike Moscow, to strike decision-making centers with missiles. Now, out of the blue, patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany, 3 of them. Interesting, who gave permission for that? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will hand over long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a long time were prohibited. Attention, who gave the green light for this? If not Washington, then who? That's why Putin is now in for a series of extremely tough surprises. Military ones this time. The armed forces of Ukraine have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who destroyed that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life that image of the burned Manish. The Manish is right before my eyes. All those people who killed have already received what they deserved. Now, there will be a very tough response for absolutely everything. Because this past week has shown absolutely everyone, including Trump in the White House and all of Washington and the Europeans, that it's time to put an end to Putin. It's time to finish with Putin. The fact that Siberia is burning right now and gas pipelines are exploding there, what does that mean? They supply military units. They supply military factories. We need to explain what kind of pipelines these are. These are lines that supply gas production, which directly feeds Russia's defense enterprises. They have been blown up. Just think, to what extent does one have to lose their mind for this to happen? And to mess things up so badly that now all of Siberia is burning, not for the first time, and that there will be a NATO base in Azerbaijan, a NATO base in Finland, in Ukraine, armies from Britain, France, and 28 NATO member countries will enter Ukraine after the ceasefire, which he is being forced into. You see, when I look at all this, I just have this realization. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is simply handing over his country to America, or there will be a coup in the Kremlin in the very near future. Because no one has ever given up Russia the way he is giving up Russia. No one has ever given up Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. Putin fought to keep NATO bases from being stationed on Russia's borders, so that the minimum flight time to Russia would be 7 minutes. Now, the flight time to Russia is already down to 2 minutes. NATO troops are already on Russia's borders. The NATO army is practically right outside St. Petersburg, surrounding it. Do you understand? They'll cut it off. They'll blockade St. Petersburg. So what? And what then? So I think we're facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, the beginning of a major economic crisis, we're not only facing Trump's rampage, who will force Putin to bend over in a very indecent and unpleasant way, doubled over in the ZIO pose, but we're also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis for the Russian Federation. I think that a coup d'etat, maybe even a military one carried out by a military junta, is not far off.
I'm curious myself. By the way, our audience, please like this video and write in the comments who you think will carry out this military coup. Like, comment, let's go. Who is even capable? Who has the mission, the message to do this?
I almost said Vladimir would be happy to do it. Lately, he talks about Trump's lip all the time. He has some very strange, very odd fantasies. I don't even know. Do you dream about Trump's lip? Personally, I don't. I have no idea why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about it. He needs to dream about Putin's ass and his lips, and also about Trump's lips. There are some really strange fantasies going on there. But by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Malyuk, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He just needs to wake up and destroy the mafia boss, Putin. Seriously speaking, what we've seen lately, I mean the murder of Starovoyt, the Russian Minister of Transport.
Yes.
That changed everything completely. Now the Kemezov clan is already under threat and will be targeted. This whole story with the wreath. When Putin sent the wreath, RIA Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, and then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. RIA Novosti deleted the report, Peskov shaved his mustache and said that Putin hadn't sent anything. And 9 officials, led by Chemezov, 9 ministers with Chemezov, the head of Rostek, and until recently one of Putin's closest allies, showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow against them. It's a blow from Chemezov's clan, from the clan of that security official who opposes Patrushev and Sechin and talks about the need for reconciliation, about a pause in the so-called war. This means that the Hawks have started targeting those so-called peacemakers, and now there will be a major showdown. At least half of Russia's elite will be wiped out in the near future. There will be big bloody purges. Putin will be killing, throwing people out of windows, imprisoning them. He'll do whatever he wants now. And this Chemezov clan, I think, these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this kind of mini mutiny, a public humiliation of Putin, and were directly protected by the Rotenbergs and Chemezov, from whom the transport revenue streams were seized today and transferred to the Kovalchuks and specifically to Putin himself, putting all that money from the Russian Ministry of Transport directly into his pocket. I think that now a massive purge will begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is currently under threat. And now, attention, here's the question. Who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin factions. Now, a blow will come from them. Now the other side will strike back. So we will find out who will be left standing in the end. I think that now Putin will use absolutely repressive methods, the entire repressive apparatus. All of the UBUP, all the security forces will be mobilized. But the other question is, who will stand against him? I suspect that now there will be very large-scale mass crackdowns, just a bloodbath in Moscow near the Kremlin, that the entire Kremlin will be turned upside down. I don't even know if we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow, that Putin has been cut off from communication, that the Kremlin is powerless and surrounded, and that a military junta has seized power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be very large-scale purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath because the board has been flipped over, because Putin has done something that no one has done since the days of Stalin. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalin not to destroy their own. Not to destroy their own, Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these same people don't stop him now, don't neutralize him, don't dispose of him, and don't eliminate him, however they do it, whether they send him off to a dacha, seal him up in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or remove him in any way possible, it doesn't matter. If they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now we are watching Russia very closely. There are going to be major showdowns there, a big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, there was a very interesting story when we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones for 3 days in a row. After that, Russian war correspondents wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike with 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then, Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system, the Pantsir, had started attacking a civilian airplane. This information hasn't been confirmed, but it did appear, and they are jamming communications and the internet. And here is the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow and St. Petersburg? Could they shoot down their own plane? And why are they jamming communications? Could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist acts organized by Putin himself or the FSB?
They are jamming communications for the following reason. Everyone thinks they are fighting against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones. In reality, they are jamming communications so that all of Moscow and all the big cities know and see nothing at all. This is an obvious thing. It's clear that this jamming of communications doesn't really help them much. That's the first story. The second story, as for this particular strike, we have long discussed with you regarding the Belarusian passenger plane, by the way. Dasha, we've talked for a while about the fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security services, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others, are preparing a series of mass terrorist attacks on the territory of Moscow. This signal, when a drone fell near Vnukovo in a yard close to Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and there was a lockdown, they weren't allowed outside the airport, not even outside the airport grounds. So not just the terminals, but the entire grounds. So we're saying that, yes, terrorist attacks are being prepared, most likely targeting airports. Most likely, all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, Pulkovo are under great threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy some passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. They destroyed the Azerbaijani plane, tried to pin it on someone else, but it didn't work. Now the Belarusian plane, they tried to pin it on someone else, but it didn't work. They are preparing some series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, when one of their anti-missiles falls on an airport, taking the lives of thousands of people. All this is to blame Ukraine and escalate the war. Escalate the situation, force everything, and cancel contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription-based unpaid system. No need to pay for cannon fodder, as they've already calculated in the Kremlin. The truth is, they don't have any money. They don't have money for the war in its current form or for defense until the end of this year. After that, it's a choice. Either give money to their own people or send these people as cannon fodder for free, risking their own regime, but still paying their security forces. Because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security forces. That's the second story. The third, when he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? But in fact, that's a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day, and for no reason at all, Russia's air defense forces could just launch anti-missiles and strike, especially since in Belarus they're targeting the Belarusian plane, the plane of the head of state, Lukashenko's plane. Lukashenko doesn't want to fly directly, he doesn't want to directly. But to help Putin in the war? Well, what do you mean by help? To openly enter the war. He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic states. Yes, he sends Putin's Geran drones through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to take risks because he understands that as soon as Putin starts some kind of war with his help, Lukashenko will be overthrown. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help them. He won't have time to escape to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like this. We recently discussed a very strange coincidence when an Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader, Ilham Aliyev, was taking off. Now, there's another interesting situation. A Belarusian plane. So is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Is it basically a signal saying, you have a plane too, I can shoot it down, so either join me in the war or else? This is very interesting, especially since I thought that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, whose situation is unclear, whether he was poisoned or just got sick like that, right? Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, yes, and his ribs too. They broke his ribs and sent him to Africa, and then his wife barely managed to rescue him from a basement, and so on down the list. General Spartak. All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair have all, in one way or another, been disposed of. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Starovoy. I think he will be next, or General Gerasimov will be next. One of them will be executed publicly in the near future. But well, all those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, have all been disposed of. One way or another, they've been neutralized. Only Lukashenko remains. I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko, and this is not beneficial for Ukraine right now. Because what we definitely don't need is for Putin to install his own official Gauleiter in Belarus, some lieutenant colonel or colonel of his. Another Chekist, who would then directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is something that absolutely nobody needs. Not Ukraine, not Europe, not NATO, not America. And it's not for nothing. Not for nothing that he visited Belarus, not for nothing that he held talks with Lukashenko. Most likely they are trying to dissuade Lukashenko from siding with Vladimir Putin and with China. And finally, regarding drones, everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is the most important news of the week. The US Secretary of Defense released a video. The video was widely circulated. Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
I saw it, yes.
You saw it, right? Everyone was laughing, but the most important thing wasn't what was being shown, but what he was actually saying. So, what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The United States, the drone country. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important, for the US, small drones are now considered munitions, ordinary ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used, replenished, and so to speak, they are not considered a separate type of weapon, so they can be written off without issue. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make, how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? It means that in the future, Ukraine will receive millions of these drones, millions. And so, as you asked, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is also getting artillery shells. Just recently, South Korea reported that it was 12 million. North Korea has already sent Putin artillery shells. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region. Actually, I think they've already built it to produce drones, thousands of drones. So right now, there is no other option except to send these drones to Ukraine to make it the most powerful drone country in America. And to give Ukraine the opportunity to test American modern new technologies on Russia. So I think Ukraine will get everything it needs, not just long-range missiles, but also drones. And Moscow, of course, will be in flames. And not just Moscow, but all other key centers, including decision-making centers.
Now, in the audience, top analyst Sasha Demchenko and I work together twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Let us know in the comments what you think about our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and also to Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel where Alexander Demchenko appears. And in the comments, write what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic that I would like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US is no longer restricting strikes and that Germany has officially confirmed already in July that Ukraine will receive long-range missiles capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and depots on Russian territory. Right now, a refinery in the Krasnodar region has been blown up. Gazprom in Khanty-Mansi, Autonomous Okrug, the Black Sea and Pacific fleets have been attacked, and the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this, now Ukraine is gaining the advantage. What do you think?
I think this is all turned upside down. When the Chancellor of Germany says that the time for diplomacy is over, it means they have bet on war, they are ready to fight. That is, for the first time in the past 6 months, or rather in the past 3.5 years, because for 3.5 years the bet was on containing Russia. They thought they could come to an agreement with Putin, persuade him, appease him, and conduct some parallel negotiations. There were different iterations. Biden separately, Trump separately, each had their own format. It's unclear what the Europeans were thinking all this time. But now the bet has been placed on war. They are ready to encircle Putin, to twist him up tightly like a ball. That's why things are going to get very tough for Putin now. And it's not for nothing that Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's not for nothing that they spoke twice on the sidelines of ASEAN in Malaysia. It's not for nothing. Putin has minimized strikes on Ukraine. In other words, we're seeing a completely different reaction. Well, that's because everyone is fed up with Putin. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with his own soiled underwear, just expect that tons of piss will be poured right back in your face. That's all there is to it. That's exactly what we've just witnessed. That's what we're going to be seeing in the near future. No one is going to stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, it was the only Russian aircraft carrier, and it was under repair for an absurdly long number of years. And in Russia, to be honest, we simply aren't capable of repairing it. Why can't we repair it? Here's the question. No spare parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers. Sanctions have wiped everything out. And most notably, there's no money. There's no money for these insanely expensive aircraft carriers. But what about those plans? To build several aircraft carriers, carrier groups, to catch up with America. And what about all that talk that our China is overtaking us? Let's get ourselves some carrier groups. There will be no more carrier groups in Russia. And there will be no more aircraft carriers in Russia. You'll be fighting with barges. That's it. You'll be hauling watermelons on those barges. There will be nothing else. Nothing. Everything is being scrapped. Everything is being scrapped. Yes, if it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have been brought to its knees long ago and would be begging for mercy, but not for mercy. But in any case, seriously speaking, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping, the North Koreans are helping, Iran isn't helping as much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's words are worth, as he now brazenly wants to take nuclear technology from Iran and transfer it to himself. That's what kind of peacemaker he is. Let's give Iran another round and we'll have a memorandum song performed by Putin. You see? We'll take the nuclear technology and move it to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so that he would have one more extra red button, or so that the existing red button would get bigger. But whatever the case, Dasha, all this shows that Putin has no money. The budget deficit is already at 4 trillion. They say that if Trump imposes sanctions, the deficit will reach 7 to 7.5 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has 1 trillion in debt. It's bankrupt. All of Russia's key enterprises are bankrupt. Bankrupt. Every third car dealer is not operating in Russia. A third of taxi drivers are no longer working in Russia. Mortgages have dropped exactly threefold. Mortgages have dropped exactly threefold. Putin has already burned through $350 billion, 15% of its economy. The hellish sanctions will take out 30 or even 40% of its economy. Oil production in Russia has dropped by 30 to 35%. There's no revenue in the budget. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money, and he needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? First, it means he will start cutting off, stop giving money, stop paying, stop making payments to his cannon fodder. That's the first thing. Second, it means that Vladimir Putin will start completely reshuffling his entire inner circle, shaking up the top and redirecting financial flows to his own family and close associates, taking these flows away from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and seized his Ural gold mining enterprise. They're already taking the gold. They're already taking over agriculture. What are we talking about here? Putin doesn't have any money. He needs to find this money somewhere. He has to get this money from somewhere. And he will take this money from the Russian people. That's all there is to it. This whole mess will be over soon. If Trump, not just in words but in action, puts Putin in a really tough spot, the war will end soon. Right now, Trump has the power to do this, to change everything and turn the board upside down. I hope the board will be completely overturned. And right now, Putin is very scared. He finally realized that he went too far, and he shouldn't have done it.
Sasha, I want us to spend the last 5 to 8 minutes on Trump as well, but before that, there's an important topic. The Kerch Bridge, the Crimean bridge, occupied Crimea. This is very important, considering that now the Germans are going to provide us with, as I understand it, with German funding. We have produced our own weapons and so on, and they will be ready by the end of this month. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will it be the TAURUS missiles, Storm Shadow, or long-range Neptunes? And will we be able to damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kerch or Crimean bridge is inevitable. Anything that's ugly, that doesn't fit the architectural design, anything built according to Stalinist standards must be destroyed, and it will be destroyed. You see, Dasha, here's the situation. There is no other option but to drive out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases, and Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes that Crimea is under threat, this regime will instantly collapse. Everyone is well aware of this. When he now transfers weapons, anti-missile, anti-aircraft systems, and so on from the list from the Donbas he occupied with his own criminal troops to the territory of the Crimean Peninsula, he is demonstrating to everyone, first of all, that he is running out of weapons. Second, that for him, Crimea is the most important, if we consider all the occupied Ukrainian territories. Well, aside from the whole of Ukraine, but the British have already written that he would have to wait 99 to 100 years for that. He won't live to see it. That's obvious. I think that his family will poison him with those little pills. They'll prolong his life. Next, you see, this also shows that he doesn't care at all about the occupied territories or about any of those people. He's ready to sacrifice these people in Donbas and so on, in all the occupied territories of Ukraine, just to keep Crimea. And a strike on Crimea and a strike on that bridge are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall, the bridge will be destroyed. Maliuk is already sitting there. Last time he was counting, we discussed this ourselves. 200, 200, 400, 200, right? 400, 200 explosives. Well, fine, they calculated it. 400, 200 did not work. So it'll be 10,000 tons. That's all there is to it. Everyone already has plans there. None of this is happening by accident. Have you noticed that not a single Western representative from Washington to Brussels to London has said anything about the Crimean bridge, the explosions, the strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone agrees to everything. There are no more prohibitions. All restrictions have been lifted. There will be strikes with German missiles, French missiles, British missiles, and American missiles. Everything will be used. They will strike the occupied territories, the Kerch Bridge, and even Moscow. Every place where decisions are made, from where strikes are launched, everything will be burned down. There is no other option here. No. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. This is what every Russian official and Russian citizen needs to understand. That Vladimir Putin is the reason for all of this. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. There is no more romance, no more honeymoon period, or whatever you want to call it. It's over. The bride has left. For Putin, this is where it all ends.
The question is, who was the bride in this tandem? Let's figure it out. Trump or Putin?
Well, Trump acted like the bride for a long time, but then apparently decided to switch roles a bit. Now, yes, now Putin is the one without a dowry, not the bride, you see? Regarding Trump, continuing this story, look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we can already see the action. The green light is on, yes, all barriers have been completely removed. Missiles are on their way, drones will follow, huge numbers, millions of drones, dozens of missiles, hundreds of missiles will be sent. Strikes will happen. This is already inevitable. It's a given. It doesn't matter how Trump will use the money will go, patriots will go, shells, ammunition, missiles, weapons, everything will go. There are no more illusions in Washington about Vladimir Putin, no illusions that Vladimir Putin might agree to peace. He will be forced, and most likely he will be forced this year, maybe even sooner than we can imagine.
Sasha, to sum up, a very important topic. For the first time since taking office, Trump is considering the possibility of allocating new funding for Ukraine, according to CBN News. That's $3.85 billion. Moreover, Trump, what you mentioned at the very beginning, may allocate $5 billion in new funding to Ukraine from frozen Russian assets.
Sanctions will be adopted with Trump's amendments directly. Trump will have in his hands He will have tools and mechanisms at his disposal that will allow him to put pressure on China, India, and a number of other countries that buy from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black market schemes and the transfer of dual-use goods, both military and civilian, to Russia and so on. In other words, the flows will be shut down, the shadow fleet will be shut down, mostly shut down. I assume they'll open the valves a bit in America and Saudi Arabia, and they'll deliberately crash the price of oil. And what else is very important, Dasha? So that's regarding the sanctions. There will be sanctions. There's no need to worry about that. There will be sanctions. Trump will have the authority. Congress will approve everything and so on. There will be sanctions. And as for the weapon systems, we need to understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. This was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He had already tried as it was. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times, but nothing worked out. He offered Putin a meeting, but nothing worked out. He sent envoys to Putin. He sent official representatives, both the Secretary of State and at that time his own national security advisor and his intelligence officers. He sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked out. Nothing at all. Now, when we discuss the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, because Trump in parallel, aside from Biden's package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine from his own side. He is sending one Patriot system from his side. Norway and Germany, in coordination with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weaponry. This is the kind of weapon that recently saved Israel and will save Israel more than once in the future. So moving on. We are talking about a very important component right now. Donald Trump, the president of America, has crossed a red line for himself. He has crossed this Rubicon. We are talking about the fact that for the first time, Trump has begun to provide Ukraine with very expensive weapon systems, very costly weaponry. This is just the beginning. And this is extremely important. In other words, this step has been taken, and from now on, he will not turn back from this path. And this will directly affect the entire war, the course of hostilities, and not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, finally, the board has been flipped. Now everything is in Trump's hands. But there's another very important point. No one is going to play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say, stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin. And
we are getting closer to it. A brilliant analysis by Alexander Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week on my YouTube channel, Dasha Shaslivaya. That's Tuesday and Sunday. On Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel, it's Wednesday and Monday. So watch us and give us a like. Write a few kind words about our tandem. It's very important. We work for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you very much and see you this Tuesday.
See you next time. Bye.